Cool. So there's a lot to cover. I'm going to move really, really fast because I want to give as much as I possibly can to everybody here. But the idea is if you like what I'm talking about and you want my slides, connect with me on the old LinkedIn. You might be able to tell by my accent, I'm not from around here. I'm from Washington, D.C., but I live in Copenhagen. I've been in the startup scene and working on all things marketing for the last 12 years. I consider myself a mentor, startup junkie, technical marketer, and growth hacker. Do a ton of public speaking, and the idea is that I like having lots of projects. So one of my first ones within Copenhagen is architecture quote. So basically, I'm doing deal flow for architects. I started Clint Marketing about the same time because why not fill up your fucking schedule with more work? So that's been fun. Got fired 2 weeks ago from Valuer.ai because I had too many projects. I also do TaylorRyan.io. I do a lot of public speaking. And as we were talking just moments ago, I teach a 2-day masterclass. So that was yesterday and the day before, basically teaching on my feet for 8 hours on end. I dig this stuff, right? So I work 7 days a week. As you might be able to tell, I got a lot going on. I totally love this stuff, and you might be able to see why. Fun fact, my first time going to Copenhagen, I got on the train going the wrong way. Didn't figure that out until about half an hour later, and the lady checking the tickets comes over, and she's like, "Where are you supposed to be?" I show my ticket, and she goes, "Oh, honey, you're in Sweden." And the entire train car erupts in laughter, like, "Look at the idiot." And I'm like, "Thanks, guys." So that was a fun start. So my goal for today is to provide value. I want to give you guys enough stuff that you can immediately run with it and try it on your own. I'm going to hit a ton of tools. If you want the slides, just ask me. Just a real quick kind of gauging of the audience. How many people run their own business here? Oh, good. Okay, cool. And how many people are entrepreneurs mixed as kind of technical marketers? I know it's kind of like a bit of an overlap. Okay, smaller. Cool. I'm going to skip kind of the general definition. My definition of growth hacking is essentially doing the most with the least amount of time and money in order to get the biggest results. Everything that I'm showing you is super cheap. You don't have to spend a lot of money. The idea is, especially if you're growth hacking within startups, you can't really have the big budgets that a lot of the other players do. So I always say that growth hacking is doing the work. The idea is that if your car breaks down and you bring it to 2 different types of mechanics, one has read every book for the last 5 years about fixing your particular car, and the other one has actually fixed every single little piece of equipment. I'm not a car guy. Every little piece of machinery inside of that car. Who do you want to have fix your car? I want the guy that has dirt underneath his fingernails, or her fingernails. The idea is I'm trying to get people to actually do the work because that's where the real learning's at. The idea is I always look at marketing as a bunch of loosely connected systems. The idea is that if you can do one part of the system really well, you can start applying it to all the others. I love teaching this stuff, and the idea is get good at one thing first, and then you'd be surprised how well you can apply it. A lot of the stuff that I'm going to go in today is kind of around this concept of Pareto Principle. It's the 80-20 rule. The idea is that 20% of your blog posts or your content are going to drive 80% of your traffic. It's certainly true of every company that I've stepped into, and there's a lot of different ways to kind of look at hacking that, and I'm going to bounce around in slides, so hopefully you won't get vertigo. So one of the things, this is Ron Swanson, and there's a great little quote from this guy. It's basically never half-ass 2 things, whole-ass 1 thing. And I'm going to show you what I mean by that. So this is a screen grab from Dollar Shave Club. Dollar Shave Club got bought out for $3 billion, that's with a B, not million, $1 billion in a matter of about 3 years to Gillette. All they're doing is basically sending razors to people. And the concept was really simple. They had one piece of content that put them in a viral kind of loop, and then eventually people started figuring out who they were. Every business should have kind of that big piece of content that works. So I wanted to show a couple of different examples of that. So this is When I Work. So again, I told you I'd be bouncing around. So this was a blog post from When I Work. They were a competitor of mine when I was running basically the head of optimization and SEO over at a company called Planday out in Copenhagen. So it's just a really, really, really long post about different team building games, like really long. But the idea was they captured so many keywords with this long piece of content. And by the way, if you take a look at the amount of views on a single post, that honestly, it's not really that earth-shattering, but that is 3.7 million unique visitors on a single post. Now, for the entire year that I was over at Plan Day, the best we did was 200,000 unique visitors. So the idea is something that basically was 10 times, I'm terrible at math, 10 times-ish the amount of traffic was pretty astounding. And it's true of Valuer. So I have a couple of different posts out of Valuer that have had some amazing traction. Let me show one more example. There we go. So Elon Musk doesn't need a resume. So there's this great little startup called Novo Resume out in Copenhagen. They basically sprang to life practically overnight because they took their product and applied it to a popular culture figure, Elon Musk. The dude doesn't need a resume. But the idea was pretty simple. They basically posted this resume of his and it got picked up by Time.com, major publisher. From there, Business Insider and a bunch of other major publishers. Within a very short amount of time, they boosted their domain authority so much they were capturing keywords left, right, and center. The idea is you can do this too. And I want to show a couple of different ways about how this is done and what this looks like. My version of that is a blog post called The 50 Examples of Corporations That Failed to Innovate. And I'll put that right here. Not the most earth-shattering post. It was basically like a listicle, a long list, and essentially this is driving more traffic than all of our blog posts put together, and it's also driving more traffic than any single page on our main site put together as well. It's crazy. So I want you to think about content that way, and I want to show how you can do that. So there's something called the Skyscraper Technique. Has anybody heard of this? All right, cool. So I'll do a quick recap for those that don't. The idea is this is Brian Dean from Backlinko. If you're ever looking for somebody that's going to inspire you in terms of SEO and content, Brian Dean, Backlinko. So the concept's really simple. Back in the old days of New York City, everybody wanted the tallest building in all of New York. That way you could brag about it. It meant something to be the center of the universe. And of course, it's also kind of a dick measuring contest. But the idea was, due to the confines of construction and engineering, you could only get to a certain height. So somebody decided to put a giant flagpole on top of their building, and all of a sudden they had the tallest building in all of New York. So everybody else started doing that, and it became this thing to do. So the idea is, I'm not encouraging you to steal content, but I'm going to show you how to do it. So there's a great little tool called Ahrefs, and let me jump in. So Ahrefs is this wonderful tool that allows you to basically pull apart different websites and see what the best content is. So this is Valuer, and I'm also going to show a competitor of Valuer. So I go down to top content, click, and my internet's a little slow, bear with me. Oh no, okay, sorry guys, good call. Yeah, exactly. All right, so this is the top content side of Ahrefs. So the idea is that I'm able to see, based on shares and referring domains, what the top content is of myself and any of my competitors. So if we go down the list, I can start to see, this works over there. This is a psychology principle of social proof. The idea is if you go to a new city and you're walking down the main promenade and you see tons of people in one restaurant and nobody in the other, you intuitively think, well, the one with nobody at it sucks because nobody's there. I want to go to the packed one. It's a weird thing, but we all do it. So inside of Ahrefs, they have this little thing called social power, but I think it's a little tongue-in-cheek. It really means social proof. So you're basically saying, if this works over there, it will work for me. The idea is I recreate every one of my biggest competitors' piece of content and essentially play the leapfrog game over top of them. It's taking your competitor's best player out of the game and making him play for you. So the idea is, let's say the best one in here, the 50 best startup cities in 2019. I would do 100 of the best startup cities in 2020. Or the next one would be one of the fun ones. Top 25 most badass startups in Denmark. I would say the 50 badass startups you've never heard of in Denmark. You'd be surprised how well this works. And the problem is everybody that knows how to play this game is doing it. So this is a company called CB Insights. Maybe some of you have heard of them. So they skyscraped our best piece of content. It happens. So they basically did a post that was essentially, it started with 50 products that went out of business. Where is it? Well, I can't find it. 50 products that went out of business essentially because they didn't innovate. And the idea is I'm starting to come back and steal their stuff too. You can do that yourself. You can do that with your competitors. And here's the interesting part. Do it for publishers. The idea of social proof actually works. Make the best piece of content, steal from them, don't copy and paste, make a better version of it. And I want to show you some of the techniques on how that's done. Bum, 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 bum. Cool. There's a little bit of back and forth. All right. So, some of the ways that we can do this is we can start peppering in a lot more keywords. So the idea is keyword stuffing versus latent semantic indexing. The idea is that if you search for some of the main key phrases that are ranking in a particular article, scroll all the way down and look for recommended searches. Those are the things that you want to pepper in there. Because guess what Google is looking for is other phrases that are very similar to the phrase that you've searched for in the article. User intent is everything. I'm going to jump into that on the next slide. A table of contents. Anybody that has a WordPress site, there are very simple table of content plugins that essentially allow you to break up your content, which helps for answer snippets. So the whole idea is you're giving a better user experience and you're starting to capitalize a lot more on those answer snippets we just talked about. Provide examples. Examples are everything. Examples of, examples for. The idea is that Google is looking for articles that cover everything in depth. Internal and external linking are super important, and skimmability is changing the way that we actually surf. The idea is that if you are scrolling through on mobile and you have mile-long paragraphs, nobody's reading that. Nobody reads line by line like that anymore. You need to break them up. So, based on intent, I want to create content around some of the stuff that's been skyscraped. Sorry, I'm thirsty. So, some of the top stuff over here is really simple. The idea is informational searches are really quite easy, and we don't actually have to go click on anything. What is the capital of Denmark, right? I mean, that should be informational. I don't need to go to a page for that. Navigational, in terms of my website, the about page of, or Twitter or Facebook, really simple stuff. The two ones down here, these are the sexy ones. These are the ones that we're getting at essentially whether or not somebody's ready to buy. So commercial is essentially finding out about a product. So if you're doing Star Wars posters or size 12 sneakers, blue, or best drone company. But transactional is something different. The idea is that somebody is essentially holding out their wallet and they're like, I'm thinking about it. Can I give you my credit card? The idea is if somebody's asking about pricing, holy shit, they're ready to actually buy. And if you give them enough information, they will, right? Buy groceries online. They're using the word, I want to buy. So if you start optimizing for the intent, you win the whole game. Now imagine doing that with content as well. It's indescribable how easy that would be. Some of the things that I constantly battle with journalists on is the length of content. The idea is that you need to cover topics in depth. One of the same reasons that people on YouTube, in terms of those influencers, they're getting all riled up because they're getting compensated on time being on somebody's screen. The idea is it's watch time. So you need to keep people on the page in order to rank for stuff. So if your article is 600 words, nobody's sticking around to read the thing 3 times. My most popular articles are all 10,000 plus words. And the idea is I spend a lot longer on those, but in the long run, they work a hell of a lot better than some of these 600, 700 word things. It's just crazy. These graphs essentially just show what is capitalizing on the most keywords, 3,000 to 10,000 words. And in terms of where you're ranking on the first page, it's always the longest stuff. Just be aware. 70% of searches are long tail. It's getting to be that way. Back in the day, early 2000s, the way that we were shopping for jeans online was you would plug in jeans. Now we're looking for jeans, acid wash, male, 30 by 32, whatever the deal is. You need to understand that you're optimizing for that, and you're never going to capture those top 3 words that are a single phrase, but people don't search that way, so don't worry about it. Listicles work like crazy. So over at Valuer, I had a team of 30 people. right? Most of them were interns, and I had them researching every subject that we wanted to capitalize on and building a list about that particular topic. And it fucking worked. It was great. And it's one of those things, you can do that too. It doesn't take a major talent to be a part of that scene. It's evergreen. It gets people there. People want a summary type of article to engage with, and it's great for social media as well. I want to show a quick example of how to take essentially a keyword and use something in the way of basically it's a title generator. So when I was doing one of these talks and I was trying to demonstrate a title generator, I asked for, what are you guys selling? What's a product? Somebody yells out t-shirts. I'm like, all right, cool, let's do it. So I plug in title generator, do a Google search to find one. I got a bunch linked in here if you want my slides. But this is what the title generator spat out. 5 things nobody told you about t-shirts. And I was like, holy shit, I wear t-shirts every day. And what do I not know about t-shirts, right? The next thing that jumped up, it was crazy. So 7 reasons why you're a rookie in t-shirts. I'm like, I'm no rookie. I've been wearing t-shirts my whole life. And I would have clicked on that. It's not even an article yet. You can do that too. One of the other amazing things that you can start to figure out and actually harness, instead of drifting further down those SERP pages, update your old posts. It works every time. As soon as I start losing my main keywords that I was ranking for before, I add an extra little paragraph in to make sure I steal it back. You guys can do that too. It's really, really simple. Using a little bit of latent semantic indexing and a little bit of keyword bubbles, you're able to do that stuff. And include everything, my God. So we put out this really dry article about corporate innovation, and I had a little post, a little picture here of Elon Musk smoking a blunt. And the CEOs were like, do you think this is really appropriate? And I'm like, fuck yeah, it is. Of course it is. The people engaged with this content are people too. I want to break up the monotony. I want to keep it interesting. So long as it's metaphorically relevant, hell yeah, put Snoop Dogg in there as well. I'm down for it. Some of the best and most engaged content is the stuff that we want to laugh at, we want to enjoy, right? And also the informative stuff, so tons of infographics. It all works. So what if you're not a great writer? Then find one, right? So most of the content that I have on my LinkedIn that says that I've committed to sending articles out to people, 58 of them, I had a ghostwriter do it for $14 and they posted it. You can do that too. There's tons of different ways to find amazing writers, not for a lot of money. The idea is that at the end of the day is a numbers game. And use plagiarism checkers, of course, if you're getting those things written for you pretty cheap. The last little bit that I always tell my content writers, and this is true of everybody, is finish strong. That last 10% sucks because you want to move on to the next project. But that's where all the gold is, right? Making sure that you finish every thought. Make sure you go back in and add that internal and external linking. Make sure that point is actually making sense in the broad search of your article. The idea is all this stuff matters, and that last 10% is the difference between meh and amazing. So I'm going to show a couple of quick examples here of people that are capitalizing on their resource section. So I've done a ton of different testing, and I got to tell you, blogs are on their way out. It sucks. So if you're providing valuable resources on your websites or inside of somewhere on, a client site, you're going to win. So why they work is essentially this is capitalizing on some of the snippet stuff that we just talked about, but the idea is that it's perfect for SEO. You're really targeted on one specific area. The URL structure works, and the idea is that you can pepper as many keywords in there as you like, and Google's like, well, it said it was a resource, so I guess they have to keep using the same phrase. So let me show a couple different examples. I'm going to have to speed through this because I know I'm tight on time. So this is Talent Lift. So Talent Lift is this nice little site that essentially does basically recruiting software. So Talent Lift. So if you have ever worked with anybody that does keyword stuffing, you might recognize this tune. So this is their resource section. I go to job description templates, and these are essentially the highest ranking areas of their site, which is inside of their resource section. So see if you can spot where the keyword stuffing is. Business analyst job description, business analyst job description template, business analyst job analyst duties and responsibilities, business analyst job profile, business analyst begins with defining, business analyst. It's crazy, right? And 4 years ago, you couldn't do that. Now everybody that's doing that is winning. I don't understand why, but it's working, and it's one of those things that I can't really argue with. Another example of that is Novo Resume. I don't have time to go into those guys. 24 slides is phenomenal with their resource section. I just want to pull it up so you can see it. But the idea is spend time on the stuff that matters. They're driving 80% of their traffic specifically through their resource section. The idea is, of course, they're giving it away, but they have a tripwire there. Give me your email address, and I'll give you an incomplete template that then you eventually have to come back to buy from me in the future. So the idea is we go into resources, free templates, and let me just click on one of these little links over here. And if you're looking at the very top left, you can see the URL structure is perfect. /templates, corporate business models, and then each individual template that you select in here is, again, another set of keywords. These guys have gone from 0 to almost 300,000 unique visitors practically overnight because they used a resource section. I consider that to be a win. I'm not going to go into Propeller. I think it stands to reason it is what it is. You already nailed the future is kind of paid. I really liked what you said about it, but I just wanted to show a quick thing that is kind of irking me, and I want people to get a feel for it because I don't think we're all taking the same look as we should be. So I did a quick screen capture of corporate innovation. It's kind of what we were selling over at Valuer. And the idea is I want you to get a feel for how much happens before you actually see organic. So the first 4 things are ads. Shocker. Ads are everywhere. The next is images, and then you get your answer snippet. Right? And that's great. If you rank for that answer snippet, you're winning. Then after that, videos. Hey, that's great for Google because guess what Google owns? YouTube. And all of those are YouTube videos. Shocker. People also ask, puts you back into the search so you get more ads. And then just beyond that, you start to look at some of the organic stuff. No, never mind. Those are top stories, which are brought to you by Google, right? And then below that, then we start getting to organic. That's 1, 2, 3, maybe even 4.5 swipes to be able to actually get to the stuff that matters. Holy shit, right? And the idea is that's not changing. And there's a reason for that. It's the Google Home, Amazon, Alexa, but the idea is 48.9% of those searches end without a click. We're looking at a 0-click future, so we really have to over-optimize to get those answer snippets or find our way somewhere inside of that kind of 1st to 5 search engine results pages. It's crazy. Yeah, and there's a reason for that. I just want to highlight this because, fuck Google. But it's one of those things. I mean, honestly. So, I can't be mad because I like money too. But the idea is the ad revenue trends generated $32.6 billion in advertising revenue in the second quarter, a 22% increase year over year. They're raking in money, and I can't blame them, but I want to be able to work around that. So there's a few different ways that we can do that, and I wanted to show a couple of quick things. If you're playing on social, this is a chance to kind of get ahead. So I think a lot of us are familiar with Reddit and Quora. I wanted to show a couple of really quick growth hacks that allow you to get ahead using some curated content. So let's do it on Reddit first. So I want to pull up Reddit here. I already did. And for me, one of my key phrases I was really targeting was innovation. So I do a quick search for innovation, and then I try to change the timing or basically the timeline for the last 30 days. This is, again, using the principle of social proof. I'm able to see what is the most engaged stuff underneath the keywords that I'm trying to rank for, whether it's my industry or my type of product. And essentially, the stuff that is already ranking there, I either need to make a better version of it or outright copy it and say, hey, that is a clever meme. I'm going to stick it on my feed. And you'd be surprised how well that works. And it's something we all can do right now. Within Quora, it's a whole different ballgame. Is anybody advertising on Quora, by the way? Great. Yeah, that's like one of the most untapped great areas because people are looking for answers. So let's say I want to hack that. So I go into Quora and I want to find the top pages for my specific keyword. And of course, 404 error. Hold on, I got 2 of these. By the way, if you want Hrefs for cheap, Google the phrase Hrefs and group by. You'd be surprised. You didn't hear it from me. So Quora, and I'm going to go into top pages. And the idea is I basically just have to do a quick search again for the key phrase that I want to find the most engagement within Quora. Really simple, really easy. Let me just do innovation. and I can either select to advertise on that specific page, or I can start answering and go to Fiverr and basically boost my answer all the way to the top. Now, I'm not saying that that's something that everybody should be doing, but I'm saying there's a way to game the system. And everybody can do this now. It costs $5 to get the first answer. Something to think about. Moving on, judging by face, people are like, what the fuck? It's all good. I want to show how to hack Facebook groups real quick because I think there's a big opportunity there as well. So the idea is that Facebook is, and it's just the same as LinkedIn in terms of the way that the groups are basically disappearing, the way that your pages are disappearing from people's news feeds. The interesting part is that they're not disappearing in terms of groups. So you're seeing groups on your news feed. So the idea is I find one of the highest, most engaged posts on something like SEO Signals Lab. I love that one. For those that are looking for a great group, join it. And I basically copy it out of there, the exact post, and then I post it into a different group. I'm hoping that nobody will recognize the difference, but the reality is it gets a ton of engagement. Then after about 10 to 20 days and I get over 100 comments, then I bump it up and then I change the post entirely, linking to my website. And nobody's the wiser, and it totally works. This is how a lot of startups basically hack groups in order to drive traffic. Cool. People are like, this is weird. I love it. So I don't know. I have flexible morals, but I find that this is something that maybe I'm not okay with. So this guy basically posted a short story about how working with his boss is troublesome, and then at the end it's don't forget where you came from. So within a few days, somebody copies the exact post, posts it on their LinkedIn. A few days later after that, somebody else does it. And then, holy shit, they see that it works, so more people start copying the exact post, and it's like a folksy little story. Somebody even got smart, and they're like, all right, well, let me put my product below that post so people will actually click on my product. That kind of stuff is scummy, but I think this is even worse on the far end. They copy the exact post, and they tag the originator, hoping to piggyback on his engagement, getting 2,800 and some odd numbers of likes and engagements. The problem is when everybody's cheating, nobody's cheating. And the reality is it's really difficult to track this from any platform. So the idea is if you're really struggling to get ahead, you have options. Some of the different tools that are out there in terms of posting, I think there's a lot of different areas to kind of play with, and a lot of up-and-coming networks like TikTok that nobody's messing with at the moment. But the idea is having the ability to bulk create and test at scale is super interesting. So I created essentially a guide that allows you to do that. So you can create 50 different posts across 4, 5, 6, as many platforms as you want using a CSV upload that then basically mimics the entire post across a number of different platforms and then pushes it live using a mixture of Zapier and Buffer. If you want that, I can send it over to you. No problem, no questions asked. By the way, I also charge for this stuff. So I think I've probably gotten pretty close to going over time. I'm not saying that all of this stuff is the smartest thing to do, but I'm saying I didn't invent the rainy day. I just happen to have one of the better umbrellas. The future of content is going to change in the next number of years, and I think most people don't realize that AI self-generated content is coming. So I did 2 hours over at Tech Festival and basically showed how I could create a AI-generated post using 2 key phrases and post that within the span of 5 minutes. And that's something that should make all of us uncomfortable, but the idea is that we have a little bit of time before that, so why not have some fun? That's the idea. So these are some of the projects I'm working on. I do a ton of speeches on growth hacking. You can find them on taylorryan.io. I'm happy to connect with anybody. If you want the slides and a million other growth hacks, feel free to connect with me. But I think that's it for me in terms of time.